Welcome to the Innovators Club for Women webinar channel, where innovation meets inspiration. I am the CEO and founder, Katie Cupstis. I am really thrilled to present this incredible group. I'm so happy to have been connected with them and feel really grateful that they somehow found me. So without further ado, I'm going to let them take the reins here.
Right on. Well, thank you, Katie, and everyone who's made it to join us here today. Hopefully we have some insightful things to say and some good Q&A for you guys. So we encourage you to ask questions, especially if you stump along the way. And there's going to be three of us, myself, Mitchell Posada, and my colleagues Hamp and Amy. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is investor readiness through the lens of getting focused on the right customers. So we're really going to be talking mostly on customer focus, but we're going to start off a little bit with just how do investors think, what are they thinking of? So let me see. Oh, this doesn't let me this slide. There we go. Guess you got to click on the screen. So myself, I start off more in product and mostly in software, etc. So more in the tech space. But the three of us have worked in a lot of different industries. So we've probably seen a lot of different things. And I'm just going to let each one of us introduce each other. I'd spent like a decade in Silicon Valley doing that whole crazy show back in 2000. And then now I'm here in Colorado. Amy, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Glad you guys could make it, even though we all have to jump off and watch Kamala. Anyway, I'm Amy McCauley. I have been in the startup world for a long time. Have had a really varied, diverse backgrounds and just really found a way into the tech world and into the entrepreneurial world. I do a lot with investors, and so I have that kind of background and relationships. And I got lucky enough to hook up with Mitch and Hamp last year. I've known Mitch for a long time now. And so the three of us have been working together, and yeah, we really enjoy working with founders and working with investors. And so we're here to share what knowledge we have. Hamp?
Thanks, Amy. One of the things that we always say to clients and people we work with is that you got to begin with the end in mind. And part of that is having a good plan. And so I've been the chief revenue officer for private companies, one of which went public, and have been CRO of 100 million, $200 million divisions, ran large sales teams. I had 2 exits. So as Amy said, we've all three raised VC money a number of times, and we've seen exits and we've scaled companies. And I think that all that expertise basically boils down to a place where you can knock on the door and say, what do I do about this? Or what do I do when this scenario comes up? And chances are the three of us have already done it, probably a couple of times. So we're here to give you a lot of information, to give you some tools, and to hopefully give you an insight as to how you look at the beginning and the end and say, what does success look like? And we want to help you define what success looks like in this webinar. And one of the takeaways is, oh, this is what I need to be scalable, investable, and to be successful in whatever venture that you're starting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mitch.
Well, actually, I'm going to hand it off to Amy.
Oh, Amy, sorry.
That's okay. So when you are getting ready to speak with investors and you're in your seed stage, really what investors are looking at is few things, right? So validating your product, like you have to make sure that your product, your solution has been validated. Can you build it? And do you have any customers? We are going to be like drilling the customer part a lot during this presentation, and there's a reason. And then you get to your Series A, and it's all about scalability. Do you have a repeatable go-to-market strategy? And is your product, your idea, your company able to scale? Because that's what investors are really looking for at the Series A and beyond. So that's, you guys are going to get a copy of this, but that's that first slide. So when you are starting your funding round, basically, your pre-seed is going to be when you're showing your viable concept and you're proving your concept. You are showing that you have a good, solid founding team. Investors really want to know what you, as the founder and your team, has done in the past, and are you investable? And from that, they also want to know if you have customer validation. Do you have early users, early adopters, and are they using the product? Then when you get to the seed funding, there you're doing more of the product market fit. You're again looking at your scalability. Can you scale your company? Can you scale your product? And do you have actual customers now? Are they, have you grown your customer base? So from there, it's the, everybody talks about rounds, right? Like, oh, the seed round, the Series A, Series B. Really what you should be focusing on are your milestones. And that's, products, does your product solve a problem? What's your solution? How do you sell it? What is the fit within the market? Do you have customers, and are you making any money? At some point in time, investors want to see that you are actually making money and not just scalable.
All right, and the big term is it? I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't assume, but if there's anyone have any questions on product market fit, here's where we can answer that. But this term gets banded around quite a bit, and there's different ways of nuancing this, and some of them are insightful because it makes you just smarter at answering this question when you do get it, because you will probably get this answer, get this question at some point. But mostly is, can you find and can you convert, customers and make them happy? And then that proves that you have something that's sellable. But that's only half the battle, because if you look at, I'm connected to like over 500 VCs, so I just see nonstop dialogue between them. And so someone posted the thing on the right, the graphic, and then the network VC that I'm connected to is like, this is great, but we really dig into this because we want to make sure it's not like you sold a few things to friends and family, or you sold a consulting project, but you really haven't sold the product, or you sold an old version. Like, they'll dig in, and just because you have revenue is not the right answer. Like, so, and then you had a happy prior customer, but not based on the direction you're going now with your product. So anyways, but I like it. It's pretty simple. Can you get happy customers? Focus there, and then focus on, can you get more happy customers? And if you have something, you have to retain them or get additional sales. Those are always fantastic metrics, which will be looked at in more detail as you go. And speaking of detail, I'm not going to go through this, but this link, and you'll get this deck, but the link here, this is written by JP Morgan's group, that and they interviewed a bunch of VCs, and there's like, okay, what do you guys really look at stages? This is sort of just kind of like a high level thumbnail graphic, but not going to get into, but you can see the top revenue. Revenue is always at the very center of the equation of that they feel is helping validate what you're doing. And then you get into more of the nuances. So they do get very detailed as the main takeaway. But that tees into, that means you have to have sold something. So Hamp, take it.
Thanks, Mitch. As a career, mainly enterprise sales director, even as the chief revenue officer for $200 million revenue a year company, I carried a quota because I wanted to lead by example, but more importantly, is I wanted to have a feel for how people reacted to our SaaS solutions that we were selling. And there's no better way to do it than get with prospects and sit down and figure out what the value proposition is, what they're looking at, what problems are you solving. So many of you probably know Tony Robbins. What you might not know is the guy that trained Tony Robbins is this guy, Jim Rohn, Rohn. And he had a great seminar that I was fortunate enough to attend. And he always started it with, how many salespeople are in the audience? Everybody would raise their hand. And he says, great. And he said, how many of you think about selling every day? And they go, oh, yeah, this is great. Well, how many of you are CEOs? And then another hands would shoot up, and he goes, you know something? Nothing happens until somebody sells something to somebody else. Then you have a company. So you can raise all the money you want to, buy all the Aaron chairs you want to, and fancy office furniture, and go into product development. And Mitch can tell you that's a black hole for a lot of founders. They just keep trying to go through perfection and never make it because you got to sell something. To all the founders on this call, I'll make this emphatic plea to you. And please listen to this. A contract of any value becomes a piece of revenue, which now becomes ARR. And that ARR, then your annual revenue rate becomes the valuation tipping point that you can go out and raise money. And guess what? As a founder, it's a process to help you not dilute yourself. You don't go from owning 90% to 30%. You go from owning 90% to still 70%. And you also get people that are going to now back you. But until that happens, you're not going to get people that are going to back you. It's called investable revenue. And so this formula is critically important when you're a startup founder to understand the significance of every dollar of revenue that you generate. Mitch?
Yep.
So one of the things that I was asked a lot at different seminars is, how do you solve I call it the alphabet soup of TAM, SAM, or SOM. And, if you guys don't know these acronyms, I'm not going to take the time to go through all the details. You can look them up, but they're standard things that you see on a lot of decks. And Amy will talk about this later on because she's the investor relations queen, and Mitch is as well, is that's really irrelevant nowadays. That's not what VCs are looking for, or family offices that back startup ventures. What they want to figure out is, who is adopting your product or your solution? Why are they buying it? And what problems is it solving? And more importantly, what can you do to replicate that and make that adoption? So before you go off and say, I want to spend another $100,000 to add this appendage, or I'm going to go spend $100,000 on social media to promote my product, that's not really the way to go. There is really a better way to think about this, is this early market adoption. Critical, because the less time you spend trying to figure out who you're selling to and more about how to sell them, you're going to be much more successful. Really important point, right? Mitch?
Yeah. So really key about that, yeah, the early days. And so this is something that I kind of I stumble upon over with experience, which is having been an advisor for lots of companies and hundreds of meetings, hundreds of clients, where you start to see patterns. And at the early stages, what I found very useful to think about as a founder is like getting beyond what you think you sell, whatever it is. It could be a consumer product, anything, like what you think you sell and what the customer thinks they're buying. You should always be trying to confirm that with their words at all times. And you're trying to close the gap. Obviously what you think you sell, I mean, this is the confidence that you have and things come across when you're pitching, selling, talking to vendors, whoever. But what I found, the folks who spend the time to really think about what their customers thinks they're buying is super helpful. And then even better than that is bridging the gap, why you think the customer buys, because that's often in your mind, but then you need to go validate that, because sometimes even if they bought something, it takes time to really for them to dice, and depending on what it is they're buying, service, product, etc., where they really get to they have a better insight as to why they really buy, and it probably changes from their initial. And so the more you can do that and really get at finding the ones who absolutely love it, if as soon as you find absolutely love it, you got to try to find more people exactly like that person or company. And that is your ICP. And most people sell to too many people, too many things, and they don't identify that, and they're getting sales and they get stuck in like, I'm spending a lot of money and a lot of time and effort chasing all these customers because they all kind of like it. We have so many, but that's sort of the mystery. And this is the best way I could try to describe it. Try to bridge the gap to really understand what the customer thinks they're buying, and then later figure out why they confirm why they bought, and get that in color, because sometimes those are testimonials, those are things you can use in positioning and ad creative and all sorts of things. The magic usually starts happening there. And if you don't like your ICP, it's okay. You might then need to figure out, I really want to be selling to these people. How do I bridge that gap? That's the other thing. So then you're coming from a place of, you now know how to dictate to your team, et cetera. We can sell these people all day. We want to sell to these. Let's figure out a way to bridge that, but keep selling to these folks, because we need to show investors or to fund, to bootstrap, et cetera. Like, you need to sell. So, and feel free to stop and ask any questions along the way. Just raise your hand or put a question in the thing. And then, so this is why I start off with that, because you're really trying to match your ideal customer profile. And usually you want very few. Usually it's just one. The more you can focus on one, the better. The more you're really being focused. And then sometimes that one, and this is some of the challenge, is you like, yeah, these are great, but they're small. Let's say it's business to business, and they're small businesses, but we're just going to be a small business. We really need to be able to sell to these people, our target market. Now you know that you need to bridge the gap. The ICP is great, and you should be selling to them as much as possible, and don't put your foot off the gas. And then do discovery and try to figure out how to bridge the gap to get to the ideal target market that's probably more revenue, the ones that the investors want to see. So I often talk to founders, yeah, we want to sell to these people, and it's like a big, it's big industry, big logos, and you're just like, you're never going to get there where you start. You got to sell whatever you can now to build. And then the main thing is like really understanding what are the attributes these people have, and can you easily identify them so that you're not just spraying and praying. And then you can ask yourself, how attractive is it? Something you're repeatedly selling to, is this an attractive segment? That's where you start matching. But it's best to at least close in, sell, build something, that you can repeatedly sell, and then move on to a different target, market that's maybe more of attractive segment, and figure out how to get there. Does that make sense for folks? Raise your hand or ask questions if you don't. And you'll have access to these slides, and we have Q&A at the end. So on the attributes, what you want to be digging in is especially as you start selling and closing sales, is really helping you understand, like, just because you sold them, you need to go back and be like, are they using your thing in the same way? Are they having the same problem? Because really you're trying to find people with the same problem, and you have the same solution you're selling to them, and more importantly, have the same buying behavior. Right? Because if you have the same buying behavior, then you can align your sales, marketing and sale, or however you're approaching them, your go-to-market is way easier than if people have different sales cycles. They have a procurement, they have all these like nuances, and you're like, then that's not your ICP. You need to, even if you can sell to them, you're like, but you shouldn't. You should focus on the ones where, okay, we know we quickly qualify them. They have the same problem. They like our solution, and they buy in a similar way. And that could affect your pricing, how you do a whole bunch of things, but you need to orient around the ones that you can sell consistently to, and then figure out, it's like the next battle to fight versus, just shooting everywhere and trying to please everyone. So that is your customer segment, and that's when you have one. And it's very clear if someone can dissect who you're selling to, if they're different, because like, it's pretty apparent when they're different, and you don't have to fire customers, but it's better to figure out the customers you have and then go try to identify with these tools, these attributes, so that you can go focus more easily. And that's what really gets sales going. And then you can start hitting numbers more consistently. And then you start growing the business. And you can tell whoever, if you're like talking to investors, like, we're selling well here, but we're going to try to get to here. And here's why we're selling to these people. And here's what we think we need to do to get here. Maybe that's why you need some of the money. We got to build more product, whatever it is. And I'll switch.
For more information and to watch our webinars in full, visit our website, innovatorsclubforwomen.org, and join as a member to build your startup for full success.